Hello, new listeners! Thank you for checking out our podcast, Infinite Volume, which actually has nothing to do with Gojo or Jujutsu Kaisen, but it is about all things manga and anime. I'm one of your hosts, Nate. I go by NL Online, and I'm joined by...
Logan, and I go by Daykai. What? What is wrong with that,
You're
bro?
just gonna say Logan. I'm sorry. No, you can have your moment.
Okay, bro. So we're keeping this in the podcast?
Yeah, this is the podcast.
Oh my. Are you kidding me, bro? Alright, yeah, I go by Daykai online, but you'll probably never see my name anywhere else but this Discord call. And yeah, we're also joined by...
Hi, I'm Jayden. I go by Luso. Pretty much,
Good
that's
intro.
pretty much it. I don't know. Thought you guys
No,
gonna
no,
go more
fair,
into
fair.
detail about like what you guys do, but I guess not.
No, we are. So, we're just a group of friends where we don't have anything special going on, but I think we like manga, right? We like anime,
Indeed.
just a little bit.
Yeah, just
and
a little bit.
I think we can have some good discussions about it. So, first off, let's go in a bit more detail about ourselves. I am a indie comic creator. I write a lot of scripts and I do a lot of storyboarding for manga online. And not just manga. I work on games and stuff throughout the internet space. And as a part of my learning and studying for these kinds of projects, I read a absolute fuck ton of manga and comics. I go out of my way to kind of study paneling and follow story structure and all that. I keep up to date with a lot of stuff. So I'm very... this is absolutely my wheelhouse. I don't think I'm an expert or anything, but I definitely live, breathe, and eat manga 24/7.
And I know about half of what this guy does. I don't have a comic. I don't have a manga. I don't have anything. But I watch a lot of it, and
He
I
has
don't...
nothing.
Oh, okay. I have a fair amount of things, but mangas are not one of them, unless you're counting Haikyu, which I have a lot of those. But we'll get to that later. Yeah, I don't read a lot of manga, and that's basically why I agreed to be a part of this podcast, because I want to read more manga. And I feel like watching anime and reading manga at the same time is a really good thing to broaden my horizons. Jayden, what's your experience level?
Well, jeez, if like Nate's out here, this is like his whole life. Like everything he does revolves around this, bro. This is
I mean,
like
actually, yes. Like, that's crazy.
2% of like my life. Is,
I would
revolves around
argue.
this. Like, and that's more just because of like time constraints on my end. But still, I think being part of the podcast is gonna let me. Well, it will force me to like give myself time to read more manga, watch more anime, stuff like that.
Heck yeah. So with introductions out of the way, now that you know who we are, let's talk manga. What are your guys's first experience with manga? How did you get into it for the viewers at home, so they kind of know, so they can pick out their favorite caster, their favorite host immediately, just based on their taste and preferences, and they can hate on the other guys. Let's just create a divide in the first episode.
Yeah, let's not just go off of, like, who's more relatable to each individual. Let's oust
Never.
the other
And
people
you know what, Jayden?
completely.
Jayden, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, so pretty much I started watching anime not that long ago. I think it was like right around the COVID era where like it really had like the big boom here. I had like the second big boom here in the US. And it was mainly because of Logan, Nate, and then a couple of my other friends. They were into anime, and I kind of just like never got really some of the references. But then I started watching it, so it was like my first anime was One Punch Man, which I really enjoyed. It then and as from there it just kept on going. So yeah.
Nice. Log, how about you?
In terms of manga, I only have, like I said, mostly Haikyuu, and the other mangas that I do have are for decoration. I bought the first. I literally bought the first 5 volumes of Demon Slayer and Jujutsu Kaisen, and I also have the box set of A Silent Voice, purely because they looked cool, and I watched the animes for them
I feel that.
prior to buying the manga. But after I watched the shows, I was inclined to read the manga, but never saw myself picking up any of the volumes. So they're there, and I may or may not read them eventually. But that's my manga wheelhouse experience. But if you're talking anime, I've been watching anime since I was in middle school, and I started with Fairy Tail, which we will also get into that because
Yeah,
I
I'm
don't
sure that's gonna
think
come
that's an anime that you want to hear somebody starting with, but I also don't even know if it's a respectable anime nowadays because of Eden Zero or how it ended or anything like that. I'm out of the loop because that was what I started with and not what I'm currently watching. But I've been watching since I'd say 2014, 2015 ish. And I usually keep up to the newer ones, but that's my experience with anime.
All right, and I guess now it's my turn. I came out the womb drowning in anime and manga. Like I don't know how to explain to you guys.
Yeah,
I instead of breastfed, I was book fed, suckling on the
This
pages
guy,
of
bro.
manga.
Yeah, that's
No.
crazy. Crazy ass statement.
Nah, but but on a serious note, whenever I was over my grandparents when I was a kid, like maybe in elementary school and on, I would stay up real late at night, always catch Toonami. I think some of my first anime were probably Dragon Ball and Inuyasha, Zatch Bell and Naruto, all the classics from the early 2000s, and then I knew I liked anime, but I never really. I had a really bad habit of liking to read when I did read in school, like a lot. Hence, becoming a writer. But I couldn't keep myself to like in front of a book for long. Like I always struggled to pick one up and like actually get sucked into it unless it really captured my interest right off the rip. So I had manga growing up. Like I had I think my first volume ever was the first volume of Zatch Bell. And I had a couple of volumes of Dragon Ball and I think Initial D even. And then I barely read them though. Like I just kind of had them and I was like, "Man, I love the artwork here and I like the characters." And that was like the extent of it. I don't think I really and I almost jumped to anime there. Let me keep on this train of thought. I almost pretty much went my whole life without really reading manga despite making it until I read Demon Slayer. I read Demon Slayer as it was really popping off. I want to say maybe 2021, 2022. And I just kind of stuck with it until the end in the manga. I remember specifically watching the Mugen Train movie and then really wanting to catch up with it, and then I got into the cycle of I binged the whole fucking thing at work, and then like reading the chapters, got caught up, and then immediately wanted more because I was now in the habit of reading at work, and then like every day I just started consuming more and more manga and getting into the habit of like studying panels and all that. In terms of anime, again just the Dragon Balls, the Zatch Bell, the Naruto, all that stuff on Toonami. I liked it, but I never like was super into paying attention to them. Nowadays, it's harder for me to find time to watch anime because I'm reading so much. But I do enjoy a good animation. I love what like One Piece is doing nowadays, and a good movie here and there always catches my interest. Sometimes I'll go out of my way and watch stuff. Like I watched Serial Experiment Lane just the other month or so. Just completely out of the blue because it caught my interest. That's a good segue into our next segment. Let's talk about what we're currently reading and watching, guys. Logue, what are you watching anything? You reading anything?
Well,
this past infinite time before the last episode 0 that exists. I promise.
I am kind of not watching anything. The most recent series I've actually.
Bro didn't know prep work.
What are you,
He's
bro?
He's like, I've
He's like, I got
got
nothing.
this. I watched
You-
Yu Yu Hakusho growing up.
You asked me to be on this podcast, and I agreed. So I didn't
I
think
see.
there were any
You
prerequisites
started fresh.
to
Okay.
having watched anime in the past week or two. But my most recent watch of an anime, you know, it's probably Haikyu, because I rewatched that anime 90,000 times, and I still go back and watch it, sometimes through YouTube clips, sometimes through whole episodes. But in terms of new series, the most recent one that I've watched is damn. I don't watch a lot of anime recently.
That's fair.
I've just
It's hard
watched
to like
Arcane.
sit down and watch it if you're not into it. Yeah, Arcane. I did.
I know that's not
did
anime,
watch
but
that as well.
that's my most
I think it
recent
counts.
series
Yeah, I think you
that
can
I've
count that.
watched.
Same thing with Star Wars versions. I
Oh,
think you can also count it,
yeah.
especially the first
Yeah.
season.
Tangent. But yeah, I mean, it's probably just the pressure getting to me. Like, I probably have watched an anime within the past month, but I cannot think of it to save my life. So, what about you, Jade?
So I'm currently watching One Piece.
Heck
So
yeah. Where's
what
the
episode?
Okay. You know what?
177, I think, something like
All
that.
right.
Not to
Let's-
take over, but I should preface. Spoiler warning. We don't care about spoilers here. That's something unique with our podcast. We just kind of want to talk about whatever we want to talk about, and we want to use this as a way to encourage people to get caught up with series. And like, you know, if you want to listen to us ramble about stuff going on, then be sure to be caught up and
Yeah.
expect to be spoiled if you're
If
behind.
you don't want
Do
to
your
hear
homework,
about
unlike
somebody's dad dying or somebody getting cancer,
If you don't want Spy Family spoilers for this past week, which was fucking crazy,
then
Oh damn.
watch that
Yeah,
first.
I refuse. I won't
then
do.
come
I will
back.
not spoil Spy Family because I know you
It's
guys
okay.
haven't. But it was so good. Jayden, sorry
So
to
yeah,
cut you off there.
So to answer Logan's question, I'm currently in Skypiea. So that's like around 170. I got to the point where Robin, she finally found the City of Gold, and right a couple hours before we started watching, just got to the episode where Chopper gets attacked by the.
Oh,
can't remember his
while he's
name.
on the ship.
No, while he's like he also finds the City of Gold. So it's a little past
Who does
that.
he fight?
He fights the guy with
does
the
he
big
fight
dog. I can't remember his
Ohm
name.
and Holly, yeah.
So that's
Uh,
kind of where I'm at there. I'm also
I only
watching.
know those characters' names because the card game.
I'm also watching Sakamoto Days, just currently
Oh,
airing.
yeah?
So I'm all caught up with that so far. New episode drops the day after we're filming this, so can't wait for that.
What's it up to? Episode 2 now.
Episode 2 is already out, so tomorrow will be
Yeah.
episode 3.
Nice.
Which so far, pretty much like blew out my expectations.
Oh, can I redeem
It's-
myself really quick? Dan is the most recent anime.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
we
that
that
I
watched
watched,
In and
'cause
In
I
together.
watched that with Nate.
Why didn't I think
yeah.
of that?
See, it's the pressure, bro.
Sorry.
The pressure gets
I'm
to
sorry.
you.
The pressure. Yeah, man. Hey, first episode jitters. I understand.
It really does
You
get
can't.
to
Not
you.
everyone can make jokes about coming out the womb with a manga in hand.
Then I think that's pretty much. I can't. I think that's pretty much it for like currently watching. Oh, and I also started Orbital Friends. Just earlier this week, just as like a little like side thing to watch if I get burnt out of One Piece. And like, it's a short show. It's only has 6 episodes. It's on Netflix. If anyone has Netflix, it's about some. It's how do I explain it? It's more of the world building. How it's like it's in the future, where it kind of like takes aspects from today's world actually with AI, with the growth of AI. So it has
Interesting.
like there's they live on this spaceship that it's like completely controlled by AI. Like yeah, they have like humans like moving it like humans there to make sure like nothing goes crazy, but it is at the end of the day controlled by AI. So yeah.
That's an interesting thing to bring up. I didn't plan on talking about this series today, but a current series that's like in shonen right now. I think it's called Raputa. I think that's just the name, but let me double check that before I sound like an idiot. It's basically about a AI bot that gets made to play a like Call of Duty clone basically that falls in love with like a real kid, and then it turns out like the bot is like a military AI, is like supercomputer AI that's like
Oh
being
god.
trained in the game to like take over other militaries and stuff. It's super cool. That's also like I'm seeing a rise in that kind of like AI technology thing in storytelling recently.
Yeah, like this anime that I've been watching, I don't think it's old. Old. I don't think it's new either. It's a couple years old, 2022. So a little bit ahead of its time
You know
compared
what?
to like all the AI stuff. Maybe like a year or so.
It's called. So first off, the manga I was talking about was called Deep Raputa, which not not the greatest name I've ever heard in my life, but it's a good story. It's
Nah,
actually really
I
good.
would watch that
Uh,
just off hearing the name for sure.
well, you know, you can't because it's a manga.
Oh.
That's the point. We're gonna get you to read it.
Yeah, yeah.
He's like, yeah, about that. I don't got eyes. So, um, Lane, Serial Experiment Lane was very much like it came out. When did Lane come out? Let me.
Oh, you
Hit the
didn't,
quick
dude. You
Google
didn't
search
prepare
on
for
that.
this, bro.
Damn, unprepared.
Well, you know, my
main
bad.
host.
Not everyone can just be super prepared all the time. 1998 is which
Yeah, that
wow,
is very ahead of its time.
that came out before I was born, which I wasn't expecting. I thought this came out in like 2004 or something. Yeah, that is it. If you've seen Lane, I'm speaking to the listener because I know for sure that
No,
Jayden and Logan have it. It is very much like it pretty much called how social media was going to go down well before social media was really a thing. I think maybe MySpace was around during that time, maybe, but like not to the extent that Lane pretty much guessed on the nose. It's like a breakdown of a girl who gets a computer and like just kind of like has a split personality and stuff. I don't want to spoil it too much, but because I think it's a series that really benefits going in blind, but it's really good. It's very artsy fartsy, but it's also very like again very for the time, especially 1998, like kind of nailed where we were going with the internet and stuff, and AI and all that. All right. Oh, I guess did I talk about what I'm currently? I guess I did, Deeper Puda.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
that's not what I was going to talk about. Uh, normally, I read like maybe 2 to 3 stories a day, on the Shonen Jump. Or I guess not Shonen Jump, on the Manga Plus app, on my phone, which I'd like to give a shout out to. It's pretty good.
Is that Viz's
If
app?
No, they actually have a different app.
Okay.
Shueisha owns Manga Plus. It has all of Shonen Jump on it,
Oh, okay.
and you can read. I think you can just read current chapters for free in the first 3 chapters of a series for free.
So it's like the
And
the Viz app.
Yeah, yeah, and then you can pay I think $2 to read current series that are currently being
It's
publicized.
yes,
and then you
that's
can
the
read
same
$5.
price as the Viz app too.
Yeah, yeah, I believe it.
Well, with the
they're
Viz
all
app you
pretty
can
much-
read all of it for $2 a month.
Oh, all of it for $2.
Which is
Fair.
probably something we should
Uh,
probably talk about is how
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
how
I
to
wanna.
read it or where to read it.
I think my recommend is Manga Plus for sure because like I said I pay $5 a month, and it lets me go back to older series. You can read like completed series on there, pretty easy. The app is very good. You can use it on mobile or PC. Good reading experience. My only complaint really is that sometimes zooming in can be kind of a pain because like depending on the orientation of your phone specifically, the like overhead will kind of cover some details on the top of the page. You kind of have to flip your phone to check it. But that's just kind of like you're consuming a visual format. There's going to be times where
Yeah.
not everything works out 100%.
Not the way it's supposed to be. Supposed to
Yeah.
be. Yeah.
I read a single thing today. because work was very busy. I read a story called SKK Girls, which I know for sure nobody has heard about, but it is really good.
What does SKK stand for?
Glad you asked. It stands for Saya.
Saya.
Do quick Japanese stuff.
Saya's the most important character.
Okay.
So the other
S-
the K's are characters too.
They are characters, yes. Saya, Katana. No, Katana's the most important character. What the fuck am I talking about?
False information.
SKK. Okay, Saya, Katana, and then Kodachi are the three main characters. There's a fourth main character now who is awesome, but she doesn't come around for a bit, and I don't want to spoil that for nobody.
Doesn't
What
seem
does her
like
name
she's
start
important.
with?
She's not in the title.
Her name starts with a letter.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, actually, you know what? That's a good point.
Listen. I read a lot of
No,
stuff.
you know
okay?
what?
There's a lot.
Sometimes
That's one out
their
of 26.
numbers. Sometimes they start with
Yeah,
numbers.
that's true.
Sometimes they start with,
Listen,
special
If
characters.
she
The
was
premise-
important, her name would have been in the title too.
That's
That's a good
damn.
point, bro. No abbreviation
crazy.
for her.
Her appearance is kind of a plot twist, which is probably why it's not in the title.
Oh, okay.
Also, I should also mention the official title for this series is The World of SKK Girls, not just SKK Girls.
Okay.
It's a group of I want to say maybe 10-year-old girls that are going around in a post-apocalyptic setting. And there's nobody around. It's think of I Am Legend status. Almost quite literally, because there's monsters kind of hiding around every corner. And the manga does a very good job of building up to the reveal of that, and it's okay, well, do the girls see the monsters? Are they going to interact with them at any point? And when they finally do, the way they do it is very interesting. They have these little gems. I think they're called togame, and it's literally. So manga is primarily a black and white format, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Shonen Jump has been doing this thing recently where they will print color on pages in very specific settings. I wonder if only on mobile, if I'm going to be honest. Maybe this is only a mobile app or a digital only story. Because on some pages, the togame specifically, the little gems they have, are colored. They will be on a page of just completely black and white. They will be holding this colored gem, and then it'll do something incredible. And the artwork is fantastic anytime they use these things. They give them little elemental powers and stuff. It's very cool.
I wouldn't be surprised if it actually colors the manga page with the, day and age we're in now.
Yeah.
I can see them doing that.
It does. They do that sometimes. There are just splash pages that are fully colored.
The Vizbigs, they do it with that. Cause I have the first
Yeah.
volume of Dragon Ball, the Vizbig, which I think is the first three volumes of the actual manga. All
It's
into one.
more interesting for a thing that's being
Yeah.
simultaneously released worldwide every week or so,
Yeah, true.
or every bi-weekly or whatever. I think this story specifically is bi-weekly now. Let me just double check. Yeah, it started weekly. There's 26 chapters. It moved to bi-weekly at some point. It's very good. I really enjoy
They
their
called
they're
slow
very they're very they're very childish. It's cool to see just three kids going around in a world where there's nothing going on, and it leads into this one. I think Saya specifically. It's oh, does she know what's going on? And the other two are completely clueless because the other two act like this is normal, this is just how their life has always been. But then Saya will just do stuff or notice a monster or something that the other two didn't and not say anything. And I don't want to give any more than that. It's a very interesting read. High recommend. I like it. They get a dog at one point, and best girl. I love that dog.
I mean, who doesn't love dogs?
I'm not even a dog person, but that dog, that's my dog.
Okay.
Let's go into our main topic of discussion for this episode. Beginner recommendations. I'd like to just kind of discuss, if you sat down a good friend of yours and had to strap them down into an electric chair and force them to
Jesus.
read something, what would you recommend them? What would be a good friendly way to get them to read something that you like? What do you think would appeal?
Well, I would kind of like break it down to like what they're interested in, because there's like the
That's true.
different types of genres.
Yep.
What
Which,
have they
There's
watched
manga
previously?
and anime is
Yeah.
so like vast. It's such a massive.
but like some of like the major
genre.
ones, you got horror, you got shonen, which is, if I remember correctly, it's adventures that lean more towards boys, but like it doesn't
Yeah, and
really matter.
shoujo
And
is for
shoujo
girls.
leans more towards girls, but it's like
And then seinen.
it doesn't really
and
matter.
Something else are like the same thing, but for 18 plus, right?
And then there's slice of life, which goes to like
Oh, by the way,
everyday
we all
life.
live in America, so like we have no right talking about anything we're talking about right now.
Well, we have, you know,
We're
free
uncultured.
speech in America at least.
We're
but
cultured.
Still, we should do our research if we come across
Yeah.
something we
Yes.
don't know about.
And
like
then there's
me.
also sports.
Be prepared, like Nate.
So like, I have a lot of friends that like are into sports. So like a couple, probably not manga, because I know like this one would probably lean more towards anime. But Big Wind Up, if they're like a big baseball person, is kind of that was the first like real sports anime that I watched.
Hmm.
It was pretty
My
good.
brain didn't even process that was the name.
Right.
name of the
Yeah, it's
manga.
called-
I was
it's called
like-
Big Wind Up, yeah.
I thought you were winding up like
Um,
something about your
Guys,
sentence.
No,
hear me out
so-
here. Hear me out.
I've got a big
We get a
wind.
big wind up for this one.
So it's about this kid Ren. He was the pitcher of his middle school team, but he was so bad at pitching that the rest of the team just gave up on him. They're like, nah.
Wait. Oh my
Like
God,
we
that's
ain't
the
even
same
trying
thing.
anymore, cause like they would
It's like
lose
the
games.
anti-Haikyu.
Yeah. Well, that's the opposite
Well,
of
actually, no,
Haikyu.
this came out before Haikyu, so Haikyu probably copied them.
No.
That's
Haikyu's
fucked
the
up.
opposite. Okay, continue.
Oh, sorry, it's the opposite. I didn't realize that. So he decides, well, he's gonna switch to a different. So when he goes to high school, he goes to a different prefecture to go to high school.
Mhm.
And then this is kind of where he finds out his true thing, where it's like he's really good at throwing fastballs, but nothing else. Like he can't throw a curveball, a knuckleball, or any types, or any other changeup. He can't do any of that. He can only throw fastballs. And it follows the team as they try to work towards, because in Japan, baseball's really big, and they have like this huge tournament
Mhm.
every year to crown like the national champion, kind of like how we have here for college sports. They have that in Japan, but for baseball, but like 400 times the size.
Damn.
Japanese people love their baseball. I read so many shonen stories. It's not all I read, but like I would say because of the content I work with specifically is shonen related. I go out of my way to read a lot of shonen manga. Full Metal Alchemist, man, what a banger! If you haven't read Full Metal, like if you've only watched either the original series for some reason, like I did, like a psychopath, or if you've watched Brotherhood, the manga is so good. Brotherhood is pretty much I've heard it said that it's like the perfect anime, and I'm inclined to agree to some extent. I've only seen clips of Brotherhood from like my favorite scenes and stuff from the manga just to like cross reference it, and for the most part it is fairly accurate. Like it is incredibly accurate at times in terms of like pacing and like movement and the flow of the story and all that, but nothing beats the manga, man. Like that artist, quickly checking, Hiromu Arakawa, love her, she rules. She has that series, and then Damon's, which is a banger. That's gonna be on our reading list, by the way.
Nice.
A little foreshadowing.
Maybe we'll get it on the first spin.
Our first roll. But no, Full Metal Alchemist. It's about a young, two
I
brothers.
thought you were gonna say a young couple.
A young couple. It's about two brothers who, in a world full of alchemy, alchemy is like their magic. It's like a magic and science kind of like intertwined kind of thing. It's pretty much just like combining elements and stuff, and then they get to use their alchemist powers to create things with the elements. It's all based in a science, or the science of their world, right? And these two brothers lose their mother at a young age, and they try to resurrect her, which is like the big taboo of the world. Is like this is you don't do that. You don't use it to resurrect the dead or anything like that. And they are punished for it. The youngest brother, Al, loses his entire body, and he has to live in a big metal suit. That's how he's punished for trying to do that. And then Edward is punished by losing his, I think, left leg and right arm.
Yeah.
Or vice versa.
I know it's right arm, but I'm not sure about
Yeah.
the leg.
Yeah, it's probably that way.
He loses a few limbs, and he has to use automail. It's like a metal chainmail kind of thing.
And then,
And they no,
sorry to
you're good.
interrupt.
You wanna?
and with Al, it was, he was just gonna straight
Correct.
out
Yes,
die.
he trades
But
his
then-
like leg or something, right, to keep Al
Yeah,
around.
he traded his leg and his arm to save Al. Or to at least put his
Yeah.
spirit
And this
inside.
is all. If this
Uh,
sounds like a lot, this is all within the first chapter. This is a very involved story. I think anyone who is into fantasy, any like down to earth fantasy as well, like something that has like a lot of intricate systems and like government politics and all that, military politics, I think would really enjoy this story. It goes to places that I didn't expect, especially if you've only ever seen parts of the anime. One of the biggest things when I was reading it was like, man, I remember this happening way later in the anime that I saw as a child than the first 15 chapters of a 200 chapter story. So it takes some turns. It's really cool, and I highly recommend it.
I second that recommendation.
Yeah, and then if you want to watch the anime, there's two
Yeah,
different ones.
If
There's
you
the old
can't
version,
be
there's the new
asked
version.
to read,
Which I would recommend the new version.
yeah, Brotherhood for sure is the way to go. I think the original one has merit, but it's also like it deviates from the original plot a lot. Like
Yeah, because
it's almost laughable.
the old
how-
one was running, like the anime was going on as the manga was
Yep.
being produced, and then they kind of like kept going because the manga
It's-
hadn't
it's-
finished
it's
yet, so
a
they kind of like passed
pretty
up
simple
in
like
timeline.
what not to do with an anime,
Yep.
but it was a product of its time. I think, like I said, it has merit. I enjoy parts of it. Logue, what do you got?
Yeah, so Brotherhood, I will say, and I am a sub watcher. Like, I pretty much only watch anime subbed and not dubbed. You can watch it however you want to watch it. I'm not judging. But,
He's slowly and silently judging you.
no, I swear. If you watch dub, I love you. If we watch sub, I love you. But subbed is how I watch it. Although, when I watched Full Metal Alchemist, it was after, like, almost immediately after, I think that might have been the second anime I ever watched, Fairy Tail. It was right after Fairy Tail. And I watched Fairy Tail in dub. We'll get to why a little bit later. But, yeah, I watched Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood in dub and enjoyed it thoroughly. Like, that is one of the best dubbing casts. And I may be overglazing it because of, like, nostalgia. If I rewatched it, maybe my opinion would differ. But from what I remember, that and, like, Seven Deadly Sins are probably the best dub casts
Ooh, Seven Deadlies.
I have ever heard. Well, it's a good recommend up until season 3, but...
Yeah, well.
But anyway, my first recommendation, I have a lot on my list, but I think the first thing I'm going to recommend is Sabikui Bisco, because I've never heard anyone talk about that, ever.
Can we get the English
I
name?
actually don't know
That-
if there is an
I don't
English
think
name.
It has one. Yeah.
It's that obscure, but let me
Oh,
check just in case.
Okay.
But Sabikui Bisco is about it's actually called Rust Eater Bisco, because Bisco is one of the main characters. So Bisco is this. So the whole world revolves around these mushrooms that are putting out rust. So the whole world is being engulfed by these fumes from the mushrooms, and it's creating rust. And if you breathe in the fumes, then you will turn into rust, and there's no saving you. Like, it's almost as if you got cancer, and it was just the worst type of cancer. There was no cure, no nothing. So the whole series revolves around Bisco trying to just kind of manage. Or Bisco is actually the only one that is immune to the rust, so he can use it as a weapon almost against people that are defending cities, like barring everyone from getting food and water and everything like that. So he's the vigilante, and he comes up against Milo, I think that's how you pronounce his name, who is this scientist whose sister is infected by the rust, and he's trying to do everything to find out how to cure it. So he's dirt poor. He's helping out the children of the city that have tiny like rust marks and stuff, and he's trying to experiment on anything that he can get his hands on. But obviously, you can't get the rust without getting infected, so he has to resort to black market trades. And he basically finds out about Bisco by. I'm pretty sure he finds out about Bisco by doing these deals, and then Bisco and him go on their adventure to help other people. And Bisco at first is just doing it because he kind of doesn't have any other thing to do with his life, because he's so, not vulnerable. He's impenetrable. And then they go off and they do their thing, and I won't spoil what happens after that, but it gets kind of crazy. It's relatively short too. I'm pretty sure it's only 12 episodes, so definitely something I want to recommend to anybody.
That is a banger. I actually didn't know the plot of that story.
Yeah.
And it sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, it's
Sounds
very
very
unique, and I think that's probably the main reason why nobody's heard of it, because if something is...
I remember when you were watching it, because you were talking about it like crazy when you were going through it, but I never like sat down and watched it for myself.
And the opening is fire. The opening is absolutely incredible.
We're going to have an episode where we just talk about openings,
Oh,
I think.
hell yeah.
So yeah, and going back, Dragon Ball is also a recommend, and you guys could definitely attest to this as well. Even if they don't want to watch the original Dragon Ball series, because you can watch Dragon Ball Z or Kai. Kai is more of
Yeah, they took out most of the filler, and then they redid some of like the voice lines and the animation.
Yeah.
yeah.
Thanks to streaming, too, it's all accessible nowadays. Like, you can watch whatever version you desire.
It is, yeah. Especially with Crunchyroll again, buy now Funimation
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
Yeah, they pulled a Sprint team over.
Or them merging or whatever it was. But yeah, Dragon Ball, that's definitely another one that I recommend. Then if any, I'm a huge fan of Attack on Titan. That's one of those shows like I said earlier. Like I started watching anime because of them, so I watched all of Dragon Ball. So I started from the beginning to the end. But like Attack on Titan, one of my friends at work got me to watch it, and it's just one I was like completely hooked on. And like even if you decide to watch it or to read it, you'll have a great time. Because it's just like the way that the story is just written is. I don't know if how you guys feel about it, because I know some people are like, Attack on Titan. I think it's like, so far from what I've seen, it's like one of the
I have
best.
issues with some of the way the story develops as it goes on in its later acts, but in terms of the general like idea and concept behind Attack on Titan, it's like one of the best to ever do it. Like, it is such an interesting idea, and it's executed so well, at least from the start. Like, I really... It's hard, because I'm definitely one of those guys that actively shits on Attack on Titan anytime I get the chance to, but I also, like, I have to give credit where credit's due. I definitely was super into it growing up when it was first coming out.
Same here. I watched the first season, and I loved it, and then I never watched anything past the middle of season 2. So, I can't say shit about it, but, from what I watched, I liked.
I have a list in front of me of a lot of different series, right? Like I said, I read a lot of shonen. I have Demon Slayer on here. I have Haikyu, but I'm gonna leave that for Logan. One Piece is a recommend, but
I don't know
in
what that
terms
noise was, by
of-
the way. I don't even know if it picked
I,
up on
I
my
don't know
mic.
either. I'm gonna be honest. The Jesus. You sounded like Hank Hill for a second.
Okay.
It was so, I want to talk about my absolute favorite out of nowhere hit for me in Shonen Jump. It is currently still being publicized. It is called Ruri Dragon. What an absolute masterpiece of a manga. It caught me completely by surprise, and it is probably the most mundane thing you could ever think to read, but it does it in such a way that is like so true to life. It is such an interesting read. It's about a girl, Ruri, who wakes up one day. I believe she's in high school. She wakes up one day with dragon horns on her head. And
Relatable
it's set
so
up
far.
prior to this.
Sorry.
It's already like literally that's like the opening panel is of her waking up and going to the bathroom and looking in the mirror and being like, huh? And her mom just like she's like, oh, that's weird. Yeah, don't worry about that. And then she like gets sent off to school.
Bruh.
But this sounds like this would be very chaotic, right? And in a sense it is, but it's so grounded in reality. Like, sure, like imagine if you woke up with horns on your head, right? Life still goes on. You still have to go to school and figure out ways to like make do. And I think this manga captures that perfectly. Like, the way her friends react to it, they just kind of like accept her. Ruri herself is kind of an introvert, so she's always like she's like a how do I say it? She's like an extroverted introvert where she enjoys hanging around people, but she keeps to herself a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like a big part of the story is like her growing into, herself and letting herself be involved with things more in school and stuff like that. But the whole like when she goes to school and she shows up with horns on her head, at first everyone's just like, whoa, what the heck? But then everyone's just kind of like, man, that's kind of cool. Like that's kind of, you're just like a half dragon? That's kind of hype.
That's how I would react if someone in my class walked in with horns.
And then she gets up to read a book in class, in front of the class, and then she sneezes and blows fire on a kid's head.
Oh.
So,
does he die?
As one does.
well, you'll just have to find
okay.
out.
This guy's.
We
We don't care about spoilers,
No,
but I'm not going to tell you if this child
No,
dies.
no, I'm kidding. He doesn't die. It just burns off. It just scorches his head a little bit.
Okay.
It's so fun. Like the characters are all super likable. They're all very realistic. The relationship between Ruri and her mom, which by the way, it just straight up is like, yeah, I had sex with a dragon. That's how you were born. And they don't really touch on it much after that. Like,
Bro.
it's not a major part of the story. Because Ruby's like a half dragon, so like her dad is a dragon, and her mom is a human. I guess I didn't say that she lived alone with her mom. I should have probably mentioned that. So a big part of it is like, Ruri doesn't interact with her dad at all. She didn't even really know him. So when she finds out about all this, her mom is like the most single mom I've ever read about. Like it hit really close to home because I grew up with a single mom. So whenever she interacts with her and they talk about their dad in any way, it's like right on the nose of like tiptoeing around it and like, oh, don't worry about that. Yeah, I talked to your dad. He said just do this and it's okay. And again, the way her friends interact with her too, it's like they don't judge her or anything for having the horns. It's like it's a constant theme of like, oh man, maybe people are scared of me because of these. But her friends are just generally supportive and it's very wholesome. 11 out of 10. I would put a man in front of a barrel of a gun and tell him to read this. That's how dedicated I am to the Ruri Dragon cause.
That's insane. 11 out of 10. But I respect it. I do respect it.
I'm trying to think if there's like another series like it, but I really don't know if there is. It's so it's done so well. It just takes me right back to high school. It's crazy.
Bochi the Rock, which is kind of leans more into slice of life. It's about this girl. She kind of is like, how do I
She's
explain?
like an introvert,
She's kind of afraid.
like
Yeah, an
social
introvert.
anxiety.
She's
And
like
she
me
plays
for
the
real,
guitar.
for real.
She has social exactly. She has social anxiety, and her whole thing is she wants to become this famous guitarist. And so she ends up meeting with some girls at school, whose sister owns like a club where bands go and play music, and they end up making a band, and pretty much how it goes. But there's like a little like side thing where she actually is actually this famous YouTuber who just plays her guitar in her closet, but nobody knows it's her.
I actually didn't know
Yeah,
that about
I
that
had no
series.
idea about that as well. That's damn.
But yeah, I've only watched the anime. It only has one season. Season 2, from what I've been seeing, is scheduled for October 2026, which I'm hoping. But we'll see. I want to get into the manga just to see like what happens afterwards. Another one, this is more on the anime side, Cowboy Bebop. It's a classic.
That is a very easy
I
recommend,
think
I
anyone-
think. Like, Jeff, definitely.
Yeah, that's a recommend, yeah. Even like one of my friends now at the university I'm at, he's like a big fan of it, and he's always like, you gotta watch Cowboy Bebop, and I'm like, I already have.
I feel like you could
Like, don't worry. I was like, don't worry. Don't worry. I already
you could
watched it.
describe Cowboy Bebop in like a single phrase of the vibes are immaculate, and someone would understand.
Yeah, and pretty much for anyone that doesn't know, it's a futuristic western. At the end of the day, that's pretty much that's what it boils down to.
Futuristic winter.
Futuristic winter.
Futuristic winter, baby. All right, Luke, what you got for us?
All right. Man. See, there's a couple slice of lifes on my list. There's also completely batshit insane in terms of story and animation in the form of Devilman Crybaby. But I think Megalobox is probably one that is really just... I feel like it is the definition of underrated because when I first saw Megalobox, I thought it was an old ass anime, like Cowboy Bebop levels, because that is the exact art style it has, and they did that purposefully. Obviously, when you don't just accidentally make Cowboy Bebop 2, but basically, it's old art style with modern ideas almost, and the story is about Joe. Literally does not have a last name, nothing. His name is just Joe, and
Shout out to Joe.
the the world
Shout out,
is
Joe.
built around this like super popular sport of boxing with external or internal augments that you can add to your body. So there's two different types of it. There's one that's very highly sponsored and basically only rich people can compete in it because you have to have the abilities or just the high tech parts on you to compete in the boxing. Like anything is legal. You could put a Sandivistan on somebody and they will be able to fight in the ring. And there's also the underground section of it, which is basically just like Fight City, or Fight Club. Sorry, Fight City. What the fuck is Fight City?
Fight City.
But yeah, basically,
I'm taking you out to Fight City, boy. I'll
basically,
meet you in the street.
basically, Joe he really likes the boxing and he wants to improve, but he doesn't have enough money or the brains to make something that will allow him to compete at a high level. So he finds this, I can't remember if he finds the coach or if the coach finds him by proxy of doing something else, but his coach Nanbu is the one that basically teaches him how to box in general, not use external abilities, just, bobbing and weaving, Hajime no Ippo, Mike Tyson type of stuff. And he goes into underground rings and fights people that actually have gear on them that they've sunk a lot of time and money into, and he beats them because he knows the fundamentals of the sport itself rather than relying on his external parts. And the story follows him and his coach, and eventually a character called Sachio, who is like this little rascal kid that tries to steal from them at some point, but they catch him, and he actually ends up knowing how to like make the gear. So he's pretty cool. But yeah, they go on climbing the ranks, and eventually he gets to a point where he can start fighting in the sponsored matches, but he absolutely despises everyone in the sponsored matches because they don't respect the sport itself. And his whole goal is to show people that you can be a boxer without using all the bullshit. So yeah, there you go. That's another one that I recommend.
I'm always a fan of like the underdog boxing story.
Oh yeah,
it's always a classic.
He is a straight up underdog. Definition of underdog.
Is that kind of like Baki?
Doesn't even have a last name, bro. That screams underdog. Yeah, I mean...
Is it kind of like Baki? I mean, Baki's weird.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's like Baki in the sense that Baki is more about I wouldn't say it's about the cool shit that's going on, but Baki has the spectacle to it, where all the characters are super muscular and the animation is crazy, and the story is just... Well, the story is kind of similar, but it's similar to Baki in the sense that the whole story revolves around one character trying to do one thing, or he has one goal in mind, but a lot of other things keep popping up and disrupting that goal, I should say. So, yeah, it's not necessarily the same as Baki, but in a sense, it shares a lot of aspects with Baki. It's just more toned down in terms of art style and just action in general. So.
All right. I have one more recommendation here. And it's a bit of an odd recommendation. I love a good detective show or story. I'm gonna out myself with this one. I love the Danganronpa games. Those are always fun. Like a good killing game always gets my blood pumping. I like Death Note a lot. That was always a really fun one to watch through. But in terms of recommending something like that to a beginner, I think there's nothing better than Case Closed.
Oh my god.
Outside of the West.
Dude, I completely forgot it had a different name, so I was like, that's interesting. I've never heard about that show. And then you went and said, it's
Isn't this still running? Yeah, like, that show it's longer than One Piece, isn't it? Like,
people complain about One Piece. Yeah. Have they heard about Crayon Show?
Listen. This is perfect, because that's what I wanted to really bring up about this. It does have an overarching story, but the reason it is so long running is because there's so many cases. So it's more
episodic.
There's so many cases. But it's more, like you could just, this is like a Saturday morning, you could just boot one of these episodes up of this show and just watch as the detective like solves the case and moves on. And maybe if you're lucky, he gets a little closer to the
it's
truth.
Like it's kind of like the other show
always so interesting.
Logan mentioned. Oh.
I was gonna say it's like Scooby-Doo, but
No.
It's like
I was gonna say Law and Order, but for kids.
Yeah.
Actually. So, for anyone who doesn't know, I'm gonna call it Case Closed, and I'll be using the Englishified names the Westernified names of the characters. It's weird. I think because it's so old and it came out in a time where anime wasn't as popular as it is today, outside of Japan, they localized a lot of stuff. Shout out Funimation.
Yeah, Funimation.
But at this point, I've basically grew up with this show and with these characters, so it's hard for me to kind of like call them anything else. So I apologize if it drives anyone insane. Jimmy Kudo, who used to be Shinichi Kudo.
Jimmy, bro, that's crazy.
Yeah.
It's like Joey Wheeler, but his real name is like Josuke. Oh my god, that's crazy.
Is a high school detective. He goes around and he works with the police and he solves crimes. And one day, he runs into these two criminals who are they're like peddling a drug that turns people into children. And to keep from being found out, they turn Jimmy into a kid. That is the whole premise of the show. And then he has to go around as this child instead of being the high school detective, and find ways to work with the police while still being a kid, without giving away who he is. Which the general premise is that he ends up moving in with his girlfriend Rachel, which I don't think knows. I think the whole plot is she doesn't even know that he's Jimmy, because he goes by Conan.
Yo, that's
So wait, the whole
bro.
She moves in with it.
There's a reason for it. I can't remember why. I think he goes to a doctor that he knows, who is is in contact with Rachel, and Rachel's dad is I think he's like a washed up detective.
It's washed.
His name is Mr. Moore or something like that. Richard Moore.
What's his Japanese name?
Kogoro.
Oh my
Pretty
God.
close, pretty clse.
They didn't even try.
Yeah.
They did not try at all.
I mean, could have been like Power Rangers.
He basically, the episode structure is Moore will bumble around like an idiot while Conan actually solves the case, and then towards the end of the episode of the case, because some episodes are multi-parters, which are always exciting. He'll put Moore to sleep, and he'll like hunch down in a chair or something, and Conan will like go behind him and talk into a voice changing device and speak as Moore. Which sounds goofy, but you gotta remember this is a comic. I think he's known as the sleeping detective or some shit. It sounds dumb. I don't think I'm doing it any kind of justice, but growing up, this was always a super interesting show. Like, again, I would come home from school, I would go to insert pirate site here, and boot up an episode or two of Case Closed and just, like, get lost in whatever crazy murder scheme the author cooked up for this week. And watching as Conan gets like just a little bit closer to solving like who are the people that turned him into a kid, and like meeting people related to them was super fun. The general dynamic too, like he has friends that are actual children because he has to blend in. Like neighborhood kids and stuff that like form a like child detective league with him. So like they know that he's a good detective, but they don't know he's Jimmy Kudo. They just think he's like a really good detective, and they understand that he has to solve the case, so they go around helping him set up the final deduction and all that. They're also all bumbling idiots, by the way. I love them to death. There's like a skinny guy. This is the most like generic side characters of all time. I don't even remember their names. There was like a skinny tall kid, there was a fat chubby kid, and then there was a little girl. And then they were like, I'm thinking of like the fucking cats from Heathcliff, like the dumpster gang or whatever. Like pretty much one for one what they were. But no, it's a really cool show, and if you like detective stuff, if you're into, if you know someone who's into detective series,
Law
like
and Order.
I was gonna say CSI, huh? Law and Order, or they read maybe Holmes or something like that. This one's definitely up their alley.
So, are we gonna get to the elephant in the room?
We're talking about Haikyu.
Okay, yeah. So
Logan's been waiting for this one.
Okay, so out of every
For reference, our Discord, the Discord we're recording this podcast in, the image of the Discord, like the server profile image, is of the main character Haikyu.
specifically the point where he is hungry for the game, and when they're facing off against Inarizaki, the Mia twins say,
Bro,
you
without any context,
I'll be
he's
back in
hungry
an
for
hour.
the
you know that. Sorry, but yeah, that's the panel.
I'm gonna have a lot to say on this too, but I'm gonna.
Well,
let
yeah,
Logan
I'll transition into you very smoothly. I promise.
Yo,
Pause.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so Haikyu is 100% without a doubt the best form of media, both in manga form, since I've read the manga, and anime form, or just watchable form, I have ever. I don't even know how I started that sentence. I got so lost in the thought of Haikyu. It's the best.
He's lost in the song.
It is the best. I'm hungry for the game.
It's hard to explain, right? Like, genuinely, like, I don't know how to explain to somebody why they should read Haikyu, but I know they should.
No, yeah, so I'm gonna try my best to explain why. It's literally, it is single-handedly the least relatable and most relatable series I've ever watched. It melds together the character development being extremely relatable, but also not knowing anything about volleyball going into it. You're like, what the fuck is this? It's just a show about kids or like high schoolers playing volleyball, but every single chapter has like one thing that a character says where you go in your head, holy shit. Whether it's a holy shit
I felt
of that, I think, yeah, like I felt that, like that resonates with me so hard, or damn, that was a really sick quote. I will remember that for the rest of my life. And it almost seems like every single time any character speaks, unless it's Kageyama going "Boke" at Hinata every 10 minutes, it's quite possibly just the most inspirational thing you'll ever hear. And one moment that cements this is how...
Whoa, hold on.
What?
Don't get too ahead of yourself. Explain what it's about.
Okay, yeah, you know what? I'm too hungry for the game. I got lost in the sauce. You're right.
Can I take a
Yeah,
guess?
step back, resurface, take a deep breath.
Hey,
Oh, actually, yeah,
baseball!
take a
It's
guess.
about
Jayden.
volleyball.
No,
damn.
what the fuck? No, I'm kidding. It is about volleyball. It's about Shoyo Hinata, the orange-haired boy, and Kageyama. The fuck is his first name? Tobio Kageyama.
Yeah,
Tobio Kageyama. And the way the series starts is that Hinata is in his middle school. They're both in middle school, and Hinata is facing off against Kageyama's team. So Hinata is really the only person on his volleyball team that actually cares about the game itself and wants to improve, wants to win, wants to just have fun with the game. And his teammates really only played because he asked them to. So they don't know a lot. They're not skillful. They're not as athletic as he is. But Kageyama's team is the exact opposite, where they're all very athletic, but Kageyama is pushing them too hard to be more like him because he is quote unquote, well, not even quote unquote, he literally is the best at everything in the game on his team. So he forces other people to just be better, or he tries to force them to be better, and eventually leads to them falling out and his teammates walk off the court and leave him alone on the court. But Hinata versus Kageyama basically creates the rivalry in their middle school years because Hinata pulls off a crazy ass move, literally never seen before move. It probably has been actually in real volleyball, but listen, the way they show it in the manga, it's crazy. But that creates the rivalry because Kageyama's like, why is this LeBron James playing for the fucking minor league baseball team when he could be in the NBA. You know what I
Guy
mean?
just like
It's
guy went
literally
from
No,
LeBron
what
James
the fuck?
to
How do you not know
baseball,
what I mean?
back to basketball.
How does that not make
He could have been like,
I was like,
No, no.
what an analogy.
Okay, so
you gotta kept it in the same
okay,
sport, maybe.
okay, I'll try again.
Yeah,
I'll try
I don't know
again.
if I want you to try again.
Yeah, so let me try again. It says it's
Jayden is the sports guy in the group. He's definitely like, what the fuck is he talking about?
Yeah, okay, so LeBron James is looking at Steph Curry playing against Steph Curry, and Steph Curry is trying his absolute hardest, and he's putting up threes back to back to back. And then he's like, why isn't this guy on my team? And then when they get into the NBA, they end up being on the same team, which is exactly what happens
it's
in
kind of
Haikyu.
similar to Kevin Durant. And he saw Steph Curry kick his ass that one year in the playoffs. He's like, damn, I'm gonna go join his team.
Yeah, pretty much. So
Yeah, what you said.
yeah, so they both apply for Karasuno Koko or Karasuno High School, and Kageyama applies because he didn't get into the school that he wanted to get into, which is Aoba Josai, and Hinata applies because he knows about the history of Karasuno's volleyball team and how renowned they were. Keyword there is were, because now they're called the Flightless Crows. So the story of the whole manga is Kageyama and Hinata are destined rivals that are on the same team, and they pull some crazy shit out of their ass throughout the entire series. Like, as soon as you think, dude, this is getting boring, they're doing the same thing every game, do something new. The second you think that, it happens, okay? Happened to me every time. Every page I flip. Every second I watch, I was like, come on, guys, you've been using the freak quick a little too much. Like, change it up. And they do. So, that's the story.
That is the most, like, you are watching, like, if you were watching an actual sport, that is the same thing you would be thinking, right?
Yeah.
Like, you'd be like, guys, what are you doing?
Yeah, like the...
And then somebody makes a crazy play, and you're like, thank God.
Yeah, exactly. And I will say, Haikyu led me to start watching professional volleyball, and it was incredible. I love watching those matches.
Yeah, now we're addicted.
We also played in a league at our local sports center, but anyway, it takes over your life. So if you're not ready, actually, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're ready or not.
You need
for that
to watch
commitment. Watch Haikyu. You like.
You will play
It's like,
volleyball.
forget everybody else.
Here's the lead into.
Forget all the other recommendations.
Yeah, exactly.
Just watch this one.
You don't need a life
Yeah.
if you have Haikyu, because Haikyu can be your life. And it is now my life. Like, I'm talking into my mic right now, and there is a keychain of Hinata and Kageyama hanging off of it. So, that'll go to show you. That goes to show you. I also pre-ordered the Haikyu U2's drop. Hinata, Kageyama, Oikawa, and Bokuto are all in figure form now. This not sponsored.
He's down
but
bad, but like I will say I want to dedicate a whole episode to Haikyu at some point, because I think there's so much that we can talk about.
Hell yeah.
In terms of it, and we're gonna force Jayden to read it. It'll be awesome. But like until that day,
can I make the segue into you?
as someone,
Yo.
Sorry. Wait,
Yo,
sorry.
yo,
You had to
yo.
finish. Go ahead and finish.
Can we get
What
a
are
pause
you
on that?
talking about?
Go ahead and finish. You know, get everything you need to get out, and then I'll come in and yeah.
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 Okay. Anyways.
Continue.
Haikyuu. For someone, first off, Logan did recommend.
That's my
I read
segue.
Haikyu
Don't fucking
over
say
and
that.
over and over
That's
and
my
over and over
segue.
again.
Let me say this, please.
Let me segue myself. I'm
Oh
already
my
segueing.
god. Just fuck.
Fine. No, you segue.
Okay.
It's yours now. Have the floor.
All right. So I beg Nate to.
I didn't want to talk anyway.
You're gonna get to talk right after I segue into you. So basically, I told Nate as soon as I finished watching it and reading some of it, I was like, Nathan, you have to watch this anime or read it, because I know you've been reading a lot of manga recently, right now. It is, I know I've been telling you to do it, like passively. It's just kind of like in passing mentioning, oh, hey, you should watch Haikyu. Or every time Nate ever asked me for a recommendation, when he's like, oh, I'm running out of things to watch, I'm running out of things to read.
He's like genuinely mad at me right now.
What would you recommend? Every single time he asks that, I say, Haikyu. And you want to know how many times he declined? Can't even count on 2 hands. I need to use my toes. So he declined so many times, and then eventually he was like, reluctantly, basically, oh, okay, I'll give Haikyu a shot. And what do you know? He's texting me on Discord every single day with the screenshot of the panel he's on. He's like, holy shit, this is crazy. Holy fuck, this is crazy. And I'm like, thank you, finally. Somebody that can share the insanity that I have developed. So that's how Nathan was introduced to Haikyu, was my obsession for it was passed on to him.
Hey, if you listen, I think this is the perfect recommendation to end on, because this is a recommendation that has actually already happened, right?
True.
I am not a sports guy. I wasn't a sports guy, I should say. I've always kind of had a competitive mentality, in video games and stuff, but like, in terms of sports, I liked soccer. I liked tennis and badminton a little bit, but like I never got super into them. I did track for a little bit in school, and that was really the extent of like my extracurricular stuff. I never really had time to do sports, or I was never super interested before I didn't have time to do sports. And then I read Haikyu, and I think one of my biggest regrets in life is not reading it sooner. Genuinely, the love for sports I developed while reading that manga. For anybody out there who doesn't like sports like I did, give it a shot. Genuinely, the relatability of some of the characters in that story and their mentality of how they go about tackling certain issues is like unlike anything I've ever read. The determination, I want to say, not to bring up Undertale, but I haven't seen that kind of feeling in any other form of media besides that. Like, it's just those two that I've been like, man, I can really get behind what these characters are saying and thinking right now. Like, it's getting me hyped up. I could see myself in their shoes. I've been in their shoes before, like in different scenarios. Like, I've been in a game, like a comp game of something, and like, man, I have to focus up and I need to do something different. I gotta learn from this. I lost this time, but this is what I can do to improve. It was really cool to see that mentality that I've been thinking to myself my whole life put to page in a form I never thought I would ever see it in. I love volleyball now. Volleyball is probably my favorite sport. Easily.
Yeah, I did cross country and track for all 4 years. 3 seasons of sports in all 4 years of my high school, and I loved it to death. It was amazing, but like, even experiencing that and just the camaraderie of the team, all that stuff was that was fantastic. I loved all the times I had with all my running mates, all my teammates. But volleyball consumed my life. It became my new favorite sport, and all I want to do whenever the sun is out and there's volleyball available, that's all I want to play. So
yeah, I will say, whenever I'm like at work, I imagine sometimes that I have a ball in front of me and that I'm going to set it or spike
Bro's literally
because
him
it's
out
just so exciting. It's all I can do.
do it too.
I don't have a way to play. It is genuinely like actually Hinata.
Yeah.
Like, that is his whole gimmick at first, is that he can't play volleyball to the extent that he wants to. And that's how I feel. I am him at this point.
I am him.
I don't know, a lot of the mentalities, like Logan was saying, they'll say a quote and it'll just stick with you. Genuinely, I will see myself in the shoes of some of those characters sometimes, or I'll think to myself that, you know, I'll end on this because this could be a really long tangent. they lose a game, a very important game, pretty early on into the story. And after they lose, their coach goes up to them and they're like, listen, that was a hard loss. We can't expect to, win every game. You guys did your best. But when you lose, you have to eat good food. And he takes them out and they get a big meal. And it's one of the most heartwarming scenes I think I've ever seen in any story. I think about that a lot. I've put that to practice a lot. Anytime I've had a really bad day or like something terrible has happened in my life or something like that, I sit there for a second now and I'm like, when you lose, you got to eat some good food. And I go and I treat myself. Even if I'm alone or with friends, I'll treat my friends and I'm like, you know what, we got to go out and eat something, guys, because it wasn't our day today, but that doesn't mean there isn't a tomorrow, and it doesn't mean we can't do better. And I think that's what manga and anime really, that's a main draw, right? It's just like, Jayden was showing us a video before we started recording the podcast that was talking about how a lot of it is, you could sit there and just consume it like potato chips, right? Like junk food. But you can also really look behind the page or the intent of the author and just really learn a lot of good life lessons out of it.
And also seek out the good stuff. Like, you don't always have to go for what's right there in front of you on the shelves, like the potato chips. You can look for, the healthier options, which are indie titles or things that aren't talked about so often, and you will find yourself most likely enjoying those more, if not as much, as the mainstream
for sure.
stuff.
There are some indie projects. It's not even just in anime and manga, like just in general. Indie, even in because we play a lot of video games. Like, there's a lot of good indie games. That's just like
I mean, Undertale.
Exactly.
Undertale was one of those. I know.
It's like Stardew Valley. I think it was considered an indie game. I think they got bought out.
Risk of Rain.
Oh my god, I played through
yes.
Celeste recently. Banger.
But it's like, you don't always have to go mainstream. And it's like, especially in the gaming world, where we're kind of fed up with the AAA titles. Like, they've been really underwhelming. That's kind of where the indies kind of come up.
Yeah, those are the potato chips.
And it kind
those
of
are the Lay's, the Fritos,
transfers over sometimes into manga.
That's an amazing segue, guys. I almost my jaw kind of dropped as you did that. It brings us to our closing segment of the show. Every episode, I'm going to go out of my way to find, and I encourage both viewers and listeners, as well as our own hosts, to go out of their way to find an indie scene, find a indie project out there that otherwise they would not have even considered clicking on or looking for. Because I feel like, as someone who makes indie stuff, they aren't perfect. Nothing can be perfect, and our restrictions and constraints are a lot different from something like an artist, a professional mangaka in Shonen Jump, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what we do offer is a lot of unfiltered and a lot of creative, new, fresh takes. I think there is a lot to gain from really going into the indie scene and checking out new stuff. You can't get something like Shonen Jump without supporting the little guy, right? Because if you don't support the little guy, then they don't grow up to become the professional artists that will put out the next Haikyu or the next Ruri Dragon. I have brought the first recommendation for this episode. I'm going to recommend a short little indie project right now, but I think it has great potential to grow into something really, really cool. It's called MEZIEL. It is it's spelled MEZIEL. It is by a mangaka called Michi. You can find it on itch.io. It is basically if you took Alice in Wonderland and made it like a dark fantasy. And the artwork is fantastic. I'm actually going to link this. I didn't bring this up to the guys prior. I'm going to link this real quick into the Discord so you can get their take on it.
Well, I just searched it up right now, and it looks pretty damn sick.
And that's a good segue into our closing act here. If you guys would have any other things you'd like to bring up, now would be the time.
I think
I
I'm
think I'm
good.
good too. Yeah.
I think we got everything out.
All right, all right. Surprise, we're not done, bozos, because a part of this podcast, a very unique part that I'm very excited to start, is our book club. And we don't have a name for the book club yet, but we're going to come up with a name for the book club. Isn't that right, guys?
Sure.
Yeah, I already, the cogs are turning. I can already
I didn't
get
even know we were
started.
coming up with a name.
Yeah. I definitely, I told them prior that we would come up with a name for this. I'm sure they're working very hard
Yeah,
on it.
we
Yep.
knew that in
At least
advance.
I didn't just make that up. But we do have a wheel to spin for a bunch of recommendations. We all put in like a big list of things that we all want to read. And what we're going to do is we're going to spin this wheel. We're going to land on a series to all read together. And we're going to meet up in a few episodes. And we're going to dedicate an episode to just talking about that series, diving into it, kind of going over our thoughts and feelings about the series and like would we recommend it and stuff like that. That is this book club idea. So the format of the podcast is just going to be, you'll get some episodes like this for the most part. Maybe I would say like 3/4 of the time it will be like a discussion about something within the manga and anime space. And then every so often we'll meet back up and we'll talk about the thing we all broke up to read. And we might even, I imagine we'll probably talk about it too in the intermittent
Yeah, like something
episodes.
about it might pop up.
Maybe, yeah. But there will be a main discussion video, and I encourage our listeners to also do the same. So let's give the wheel a spin. I'm the only person that can see the wheel, by the way, so I could totally lie about this. We got some bangers on here. I'm not spoiling any of them for the listener. The reader? Oh my god.
We
Not
should-
like this. No. Oh no. Oh. So my reaction there, by the way. We got Monster. Our first read of book club is Monster.
Yo, that's crazy.
So Monster is, for both our listeners and our fellow hosts. Well, fun fact: if you just search manga, if you just search Monster into Google, you get the energy.
Oh, sure, reading the energy drink. I gotcha.
It is a Japanese manga series written and illustrated by Naoki Urasawa. It was published in a seinen magazine, big comic original, between December 1994 and December of 2001. So this had, what, a 7-year run?
Yeah.
7 or 8 years? It has 18 volumes, it looks like. 162 chapters.
Oh, okay.
Bad.
That's like a third of
It's
Haikyu.
complete.
So it's not
correct.
too bad. It is completed, yes. Bro, I just said it finished in
1990.
2001.
Yeah.
Hey, listen.
There's
Hunter
a
some
sequel
what's going
series
on.
as well, but we'll see if we want to look into that after. Right, that's true. Hunter x Hunter is still going on. We'll talk about that another time. I wanted to recommend Hunter x Hunter, by the way.
My thing
That's like
is-
one of my all-time favorites, but it's hard to recommend it to someone who hasn't read manga because I feel like you get the most out of it if you know the tropes.
Sure.
Monsters or book club. I'll say maybe within 3 to 4 episodes from now we'll probably reconvene for that. 160 plus chapters is a bit of a tall order, but it's nothing crazy. I can't wait. I know the series is a lot. I don't know what it's really about though, so I'm
Me either.
very
No clue.
excited.
I have
for
no
this.
idea.
I'm assuming it's about monsters.
Whenever I was reading Berserk, it came up a lot, and it was like, it was a sad one.
Yeah, I don't think it's about
I'm ready to be
monsters,
sad.
but
I don't
then
think it's about monsters either.
Sure.
But maybe the monster is me and you.
Oh,
yeah,
Maybe the monster's inside.
that's a good segue. Into
That is a
you.
good segue. Listeners, I hope you enjoyed our first episode of Infinite Volume. It was a doozy to record, I'm not gonna lie, but I had a lot
I
of
did
fun.
too.
Me too. I mean 3. And we'll think of a name for the book
if
club.
you'd like to, yeah,
Maybe we won't.
we'll come up with a name for the book club at some point. Yeah, maybe we won't. We're not entitled to do anything. Oh, we are entitled to do anything. God, what am I saying? Please follow us if you're interested in seeing some more of our content, maybe some of the stories I write. I don't want to really talk about it on the podcast too much unless I want to bring up like something specific in an episode to like talk about something else or to segue into something. Because the podcast isn't about me. But if you are interested for whatever reason in checking out what I work on, you can go to Team Lancers Official on Facebook, or you can go to Team Lancers on Patreon. Our Patreon specifically is like $1 entry fee a month, and most of our posts are completely free. We post a lot of our updates on chapters there for all of the stuff we work on. I guess I should say Lancers is a indie comic studio that I help run. That is pretty much just a bunch of people got together and we want to make stuff. That's the whole kit and caboodle there. We're very open and we're very supportive of indie creators themselves. If there's any indie creators out there listening to this podcast, if they want to, reach out to us and maybe we can try to help you out if you guys are struggling or anything like that, I would love to get in contact with more creators for sure. You can also go to Lancers on Manga Plus creators. That's where we post our current publications. We have Dragon Universe and Devilkin's Hellmeister on there. Dragon Universe is the more manga-centric one. That is my shonen manga that I write and storyboard. And Devilkin's Hellmeister is more of a dark, gritty web comic. So whichever one suits your fancy, go check them out. They're cool. The artists behind them are amazing people, and they do great work.
Indeed.
Well, without further ado, listeners, have a great night.
Or day.
Or afternoon. Or life, if you never listen to another episode, I guess. That'd be kind of sad.
Just have a good.
have a good. Yeah, just
Or
be good
not.
after.
That'd be how we close it. Every podcast episode, have a good.
Have a good. Jayden, are you gonna wish him a good?
Yeah, you guys have a good.
Okay, bye.